Woohoo! We are live, and this is Math 6D, Intermediate Algebra, Section 8.3. Some of the weirdest stuff we're going to talk about in this class comes up in this section. This is the weird, extra, seriously extra section. The section is so extra. So, this is titled The Discriminant, which already everyone's like, wait, discriminate? Close. They share the same root, the discriminant, and solving other equations, which is very vague. And then I say in the quadratic formula, the part inside the radical is called the discriminant. And I realize I didn't write it, so let me write the quadratic. So it is the part of the quadratic formula right here, Smear Town. Let me take you to Smeary Town. Okay. Well, it's kind of smeary. Oh, and it's not even really yellow either. There we go. Okay, so b squared minus 4ac, right there. B squared minus 4ac. This is called the discriminant because it is the radical or the square root that determines what the heck's going on. Pardon me. Sorry about that. So we've got if b squared minus 4ac. So if the thing inside the square root sign is 0, then the quadratic equation has exactly one rational solution. In other words, the quadratic can be factored using integers. Woohoo! And you will get one rational solution, and that means that it is. Let me write out this phrase because it's pretty cool. The solution has, and I have a hard time saying this, so I'm going to go slowly, multiplicity two. What does that mean? That means that if you were looking at a the factorization of it, it would be a perfect square. This is a perfect square. If b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, then the quadratic equation has exactly two real solutions. It might be nice if b squared minus 4ac equals a nice perfect square, like 4 or 16 or 24, then you can factor the quadratic. Okay, this is where I give away all of the hints. So if you've ever seen a math teacher look at a quadratic equation that looks really hard, and they look at it for 2 seconds, they're like, oh, no, you can't factor this. You know what we're doing? This is what we're doing. We're calculating b squared minus 4ac. That's it. Then we're saying, nope, can't factor it, or yep, you can factor it. So if b squared minus 4ac is a nice perfect square, then you can factor the quadratic. If it's positive, then you get two real solutions, but maybe you can't factor it. And then if it's negative, that means you've got a negative inside the square root, which means you've got i's. So you've got complex solutions. In other words, imaginary numbers are involved. So let us look at the example. Can 5x squared minus 3x plus 2 be factored? Well, let's look. B squared minus 4ac. B is negative 3, so negative 3 squared minus 4 times a, that's 5, times c is 2. This is 9, right? Negative 3, the quantity squared, is 9. 4 times 5 is 20, times 2 is 40. No. We get negative 31. You cannot factor this. Okay, let's try another one because I feel like this isn't enough. I'd like to do more of these. So let's try another one. Let's look at can x squared plus 6x plus 5 be factored? And the answer is it totally can, right? Let's look at b squared minus 4ac. B squared is 6 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 5. So that 6 squared is 36 minus 20. That's 16. Perfect square. Yes, it can be factored. And in factored, no, it doesn't quite work. I tried. X plus 1, x plus 5. It does factor. Woohoo. I could also ask you something like, how many real solutions does x squared plus 4x minus 3 equals 0 have? How many real solutions does this have? So let's do b squared minus 4ac is 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times, notice c is negative 3. So that's 16 plus 12 is 28. So that's the number that's going to be inside the square root. This is not a perfect square. So not a perfect square, which means it doesn't factor. Right? However, 28 is greater than 0, so it has 2 real solutions. S-O-L-N-S. Oh my goodness. I will fix that up in the copy. It'll say solutions, but basically that's what you do. In your head, you can just do a quick calculation and decide, how am I going to approach this? Do I want to use the quadratic formula? Do I want to try to factor it? What do I want to do? There we go. Woohoo. Okay, so next up, I want to introduce a new concept because we've got a little bit of time. This is completely different than what we were just doing. And it's really, really weird. And the real weirdness is that you can use the quadratic formula to solve things that are not technically quadratic, but they are quadratic form. So x to the 4th. And already you're like, what? No, we need x squared. I'm leaving. Okay, you can leave, but I'm still going to show this to you. So you can't make me stop recording this video. You can only stop playing it back. But the video will exist. Ha 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 ha. I know, if any of you become Time Lords, I probably shouldn't have done that. Ta-da! This is in quadratic form. It's something squared. Now it's x squared squared. And then 13 minus 13 times the x squared plus 36. So this looks a little bit like a squared minus 13a plus 36 equals 0. So we can solve it. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and say, okay. And that was unfortunate that I chose A because A is also in the quadratic formula. So let me say, hey, look over there. I think it's just because I wanted to use this. Okay, let's use a different, let's do W. There we go. Okay, so W squared, W is x squared, right? W squared minus 13W plus 36 equals 0. So A is 1, B is negative 13, C is 36. W equals the opposite of B plus or minus B squared minus 4AC all over 2A, which then gives me the opposite of negative 13 plus or minus radical negative 13 squared minus 4 times 1 times 36. Man, this is a lot. Over 2 times 1. So I get 13 plus or minus radical. Now, I happen to know that 13 squared is 169. There are some benefits to being a math teacher. And 4 times 36 is 144. I know. I can impress everyone at parties. It's far more important to be a math teacher than to be, say, popular. Yeah, everyone's like, oh, I wish I weren't just popular. I wish I were a math teacher. And I'm like, I know. But you can't be as awesome as I am. 169 minus 144. I mean, you could be as awesome as I am, but just in different ways. I mean, it takes someone who's really dedicated to the clumsy. 169 minus 144 is 25. Radical 25 is 5. 13 plus or minus 5 all over 2. Okay, that's 13 plus 5 over 2, which is 18 over 2, which is 9. Or 13 minus 5 over 2, which is, what is that? 8 over 2, which is 4. Okay. Okay. So W equals 9 or 4, right? Are we done? No, we're never done. Math is never done. Math is always going to be there for you to solve and solve and solve. What was W? W took the place of x squared. So x squared equals 9, which means x equals plus or minus 3. Or x squared equals 4, which means x equals plus or minus 2. So what are all the answers? Plus or minus 3, plus or minus 2. So I don't have any room. I don't want to go on another paper. I refuse to go on another paper. Negative 3, positive 3, negative 2, positive 2. What do you think? It's weird. It's really weird. So let me take a moment, because I'm only at 12 minutes, and go try to come back here so that you guys are all like, what the what? I know, right? Here's more of what's going on. Okay, I started out with x to the 4th. X to the 4th minus 13x squared plus 36. I changed x to the 4th to x squared squared. And then this was also x squared. So it's in x squared. It's quadratic in x squared. I replaced x squared right here with w. W equals x squared. That's what's happening in here. So where there was an x squared, I now have a w. Okay, I wrote down a, b, and c, and I solved for w. And then I ran out of room, which is when I start writing really, really small. You know, that's a you know, a superhero. What do you call it? Super ability of mine is writing really, really small when I have to. Okay, so then, of course, I don't have the super ability to plan ahead. I just have the ability to write really small. Really, you need to know one or the other. You need to either be able to write really small when you need to, or plan ahead so you don't have to write really small. So I solved for w, and this is the solution for w. W is 9 or 4, but that means that w, remember, w equals x squared. So x squared is 9, or x squared is 4, which gave us all 4 answers. If you start with x to the 4th, there will be 4 answers. You won't always be able to find them, but it is okay that we got 4 there. What do you guys think? We're at 14:06:07. I could just read off the seconds right now. 12, 13. Or I could say, okay, we've got one more video. It's going to be really weird, but then after that, we're done with chapter 8. Woohoo!